Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a story that completely blurs the line between a fun weekend getaway and absolute, inescapable psychological terror. Seriously, how quickly can an idyllic vacation just descend into a fight for survival? This isn't just your standard spooky tale. It's a masterclass in tension and claustrophobia. Let's break down exactly how this trap was set. Okay, let's dive into this. Once you start this game, you cannot leave it midway. That single, terrifying warning from a mysterious caretaker is literally the pivot point of our entire story. It completely strips away the illusion of free will. Up until this point, the characters think they're in control. But with these words, the power dynamic shifts instantly. They are no longer guests. They're prisoners to a set of rules they don't even understand yet.
Section 1. Friends Reunion.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it visualizes the deep bond between our protagonists, Amol, Akriti, Sheena, and Paresh. Way back on their last day of college, they made a promise to meet every third Sunday of May. But, well, for 3 long years, life just got in the way, something I'm sure we can all relate to, right? So when they finally orchestrate this road trip to the mountains of Udi, they are desperate to reconnect. And it's exactly this desperation for a memorable experience that completely blinds them to the massive red flags up ahead.
Section 2. The Mysterious Homestay.
As the sun sets, the upbeat nostalgia kind of just fades away. Akriti was looking for an adventure, intentionally avoiding standard hotels for a quiet spot she found in an obscure ad. Oh, and with absolutely no advanced booking. But the reality they actually walk into, it's jarring. We're talking an isolated 70-year-old creepy bungalow, no hospitality staff, just a highly intense middle-aged caretaker who stubbornly refuses to keep servants. Tired, frustrated, and miles from civilization in the pitch dark, they make the fatal compromise to stay for just one night. Have you ever ignored your gut feeling just because you were exhausted? Yeah, well, that's their first big mistake.
Section 3. Darkness and a Game. Let's move to and see how this builds, expertly creating this insane claustrophobia step by step. First, boom, the electricity goes out, and the caretaker casually mentions there's no generator. Second, their mobile phone batteries drain to absolute zero, completely severing their connection to the outside world. Third, the psychological pressure really mounts with these unsettling scratching sounds at the window. The caretaker, he just brushes it off as wild animals smelling city blood. Finally, in this atmosphere of absolute vulnerability, the caretaker introduces a mysterious local card game to pass the time.
Section 4. Tantric Bhuvan's Curse. To understand this game, we really have to look at the dark lore the caretaker shares. He tells them about a formidable local legend named Tantric Bhuvan. According to the stories, Bhuvan was a master of the dark arts who meditated in graveyards, supposedly commanding terrifying entities like Yakshini and Pishachini. But here is the profound insight of this story. Despite possessing massive, almost unbelievable supernatural power, this man was completely defeated by a deeply human betrayal. And this brilliantly illustrates how the very location of our story is actually the epicenter of a decades-old grudge, completely shifting the context for our 4 friends. The story goes that while Bhuvan was away performing his dark rituals, he discovered his wife, Rajeshri, having an affair with his own friend. When he caught them, he didn't scream or attack them. Instead, he quietly poured his entire life's dark energy into creating a cursed game specifically to punish them. The horrifying realization for the group sitting in the dark: this ultimate betrayal took place in the very same bungalow they're in right now. Which brings us to the actual rules of Bhuvan's creation. Rule 1. Once started, you cannot leave the game midway. Leaving has dire consequences. Rule 2. Once begun, the game dictates your destiny, and you are entirely powerless to change it. At first, the friends dismissed this whole thing as a cheap tourist scare, but by agreeing to play, just to humor the caretaker, they unknowingly lock themselves straight into an inescapable trap. Section 5. The game of death begins. So the crucial point is, any lingering skepticism they had vanishes instantly. The caretaker places a board in front of them with 4 face-down cards. But when flipped, these aren't your standard playing cards. They bear single, heavy words: life, death, deceit, and truth. These aren't just pieces of paper. They are a terrifying reflection of their impending fates. Whichever card you draw literally binds you to that specific destiny.
Naturally, panic sets in. Akriti, who is furious and frightened, declares she quits and tries to walk away. But the moment she takes 2 steps, an invisible force violently grabs her by the neck and slams her right back into her chair, draining the color from her face. This shocking moment of sheer physical violence completely shatters any illusion that this is just a harmless game. The rules are undeniably real.
The environment itself then turns against them. The lights start wildly fluctuating, and the heavy wooden doors just lock themselves. But the most horrifying transformation happens to Amol. His face entirely drains of blood. Deep, dark hollows instantly form under his eyes, and he completely loses touch with reality. He becomes totally deaf to his friends screaming his name.
Hiding his face in his palms, Amol begins weeping like a small child. Staring up at a flickering bulb, he hallucinates the shadowy figure of a little girl standing right underneath it. With absolute, chilling calmness, he mutters, "Look, she is calling me." Despite his friends desperately begging him to stop, Amol slowly rises and begins walking, completely trance-like, down the pitch-black, empty corridor, drawn by a force only he can see.
Which leaves us staring into the absolute unknown. What will happen to Amol now? He has just walked alone into the dark recesses of a bungalow steeped in black magic. His mind is already compromised by the curse. Is there any coming back from that corridor? And we really have to ask ourselves, looking at the wider picture, is this really just a game or a highly orchestrated conspiracy of death? Did the caretaker know exactly who was coming? Are these friends paying the price for a decades-old betrayal, or does their mere presence trigger something even darker? Finally, the ultimate question that this narrative leaves burning in our minds: who will escape this deadly trap? With the doors locked, the game in motion, and their destinies totally sealed by the cards they pulled, is survival even a possibility? Or was the game of death over before they even arrived? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always pay attention to the red flags and keep questioning what hides in the dark.